Hey everybody, this is Perch. We've got a mail. I noticed this too. So thank you for writing in. Thank you for bringing this up. This is a frustration that I have, and I think it's indicative of a bigger problem within comics where it just, the problem is, I think to make comics work, the fans and the creators, the publishers, there has to be some kind of symbiotic relationship where people will cover for each other. You know the phrase. I had a guy that used to work for me, and he was an ex-military Army, so not Marine, Army. I used to tease him by saying, "Well, the Marines were the tough guys," and then he would always say, "Oh, fuck you," you get angry. He's in the Army, but there was one thing about him is he had flaws. Certainly, he had things he needed to learn. He was things he was good at, things he was bad at. One of the things that was consistent though is he lived the concept of the band of brothers. The idea that even if I disagree with what's going on with the business decision that's been made, where the team is going, I still I have I've got your six. He absolutely would once the decision had been made, he had your back. And that's what comics needs. It needs people need you need to build a relationship where the fans and the customers have the back of the companies, and in this very weird way. And you may say this is a stretch, and that's fair, but the entire concept of the no prize, and this was the idea that the comic book, basically Stan Lee, whoever was doing it, made a mistake in the comic. There was a flaw in what was going on, and so what would happen is that the readers would write in and basically come up with a kind of rationale for the mistake, basically saying, hey, there was a mistake in this comic book, but it wasn't a mistake because of X, Y, and Z. Here's this reason why it wasn't actually a mistake. They kind of, basically in a weird way, in a very in comic continuity way, they'd have the back of the publisher. They'd say like, hey, it was clearly an error. You clearly fucked up, but let me help support you in this mistake. This relationship is a healthy relationship. It's a good relationship. It's a relationship where, there's so much trust and love and equity built up between the publisher, the creators, and the fans that, even when a clearly obvious mistake was made, the fans still jump to the defense of the thing they love, in this case, comics. And keep in mind, if you are Gen Z, you may only remember comics from the lens of, you've grown up with Iron Man, and Robert Downey Jr. as being a star and comics being kind of hip hop culture. But if you were reading comic books in the 80s and 90s, there are people who like comics, or also be people who shit on you about comics. There's a video, and not that this is like the bromance of the century, but there's a video by Zach, I'll point out, that he was mentioning, I don't remember what it was, but somebody sent it to me of like, hey, this rings true for me. That was a statement. It was a guy in comics. Okay, I edited that part out. There's a guy in comics who basically said, I don't like a lot of what Zach says in the videos, but there's a moment where he talked about how he was in school and reading comics, and like the girls, the mean girls would like make fun of him for reading a comic, and like a bully would come up, and like he's like, oh shit, I'm about to get my ass handed to me, and the bully would be like, oh, you're reading X-Men? I love Longshot, or whatever it was, at the time. And oh, Colossus is a pretty cool dude. And there would be this brief bonding moment. Of course, the bully would go back to being a prick and everything else, but there's this brief moment. That was what comics were like in the 80s. It was not a sure bet that you were in the know of the kind of the cool geek culture. You might be in the a place where you're going to get your ass handed to you for liking something nerdy. That was where it was. So consider again this industry where it's not entirely a safe, cool thing if you're a teenager to read comics, but you still love it so much that you're willing to write into the publisher to excuse their mistakes. That was healthy. Today we do not have that bond. By and large, that bond is broken. And it also leads to stuff like this. So that leads me to Mr. Jim Zub and Murderworld, which is a series going on in Marvel right now. So here's the email I got. It says, hey, Perch, I'm having trouble finding the names or release dates for the issues following the Murderworld Avengers issue that came out last month. I've Googled the series and tried a dozen results, but only found solicits for the first issue, which is already out. The link to the series on Marvel's website is broken. I'm starting to think they should have called their universe 404 instead of 616. That's basically 404 is the error message when there's no page. And by the way, I read this mail, and I apologize, guy who wrote this mail. I apologize because I thought this guy cannot be telling the truth. There is no way in hell the Marvel.com website has a link broken for this little mini series that Jim Zub is writing around Murderworld. There's no way that's true. I'm like, it must have, like, I'm not going to read this mail out loud without checking. So I went to look at it, and fuck if it's not true. You go to try and dig up the issues for this little kind of micro event that's going on around Murderworld, and you get a 404, you get a page not found on the link off Marvel's official site. And look, who gets fired? Seriously. Back in the day, and I think some of you know, I've worked for some tech companies. I've worked with one of the very, very big ones. That was fireable. If you made that kind of fuck up, you got fired. On the spot. They'd walk you. So who's getting fired for this? The answer is nobody. Anyway, we'll finish the mail. It says, does Marvel love making it difficult for us to follow their series or what? And that's the end of the mail. So, Jim Zub's been on this channel. He's done a couple interviews. I want to do an interview with him. I'm behind on it of talking about Murderworld. I'd like to talk to him about it because one thing, your mileage may vary, but for me, I love talking to Jim Zub on the channel because the guy just seems like he's happy. Like it is, I don't know what it is. Like you're injecting sunshine into your veins. The guy just feels like, shit, this guy likes comics. It's weirdly refreshing. You may like what Jim Zub writes. You may not like what that's a second issue. Everybody has different taste, and I think it's perfectly reasonable if it's like I don't like what Zub writes. Fine, but if you listen to his interviews and take my word for it, after you get done with this, if you haven't heard the Zub interviews on this channel, go to the interviews playlist off the homepage. Click on one of Zub. That guy sounds happy. Like that is exactly what you want. He seems like he likes to be in comics, that he's enjoying himself, that he wants to write more. It's bizarre. You do not get the sense of a guy and he's been in comics for a while, and he's clearly had ups and he's had downs, and he's had books that have sold really well, and he's had books that have been interrupted. I think he had a Champions run that was actually doing pretty goddamn well, and then it like let's reboot it right in the middle. I mean, like for whatever fucking reason. But do you hear like a bitter Zub, like, yeah, those assholes did that to me? No, you hear this like, shit, I love comics, folks. That's Zub. I mean, what more could you want? And I will tell you right now, and I know, because he's been on this show, I know that, Zub listens to this channel from time to time. We'll see if I can troll him with the thumbnail to this video. They're fucking him. They're absolutely screwing him right now. The Murderworld series, the first issue that came out, is pretty good. I mean, no offense when I say this. I'm talking directly to Jim. I mean, this is not the comic of the decade, but it was a damn good read. I felt good reading it. I felt like I didn't feel like I got, screwed out of my money. I didn't feel like I paid for like a story that was done. I felt like I got a good story. And I remember very clearly reading the comic and thinking, yeah, okay, they did something kind of cool with they did this. The premise is good. Arcade as a character and Murderworld in general in comics has sometimes been treated as a big threat and sometimes been treated as an absolute joke. And this comic, you read it like, yeah, this is threatening. You actually got a feeling of danger. You got kind of some unique elements to the story. You got some good interplay. You got some very on brand or whatever the tonally correct characters. You're reading this like, that is good. Again, please don't. I'm not like calling this comic of the decade. I'm not calling this best comic I've ever read. It's definitely not the best comic I've ever read. But it was a good comic. It was one of the comics I absolutely enjoyed most that month. Hands down, I can say it honestly. And if you read the comic for yourself, I suspect you will have the same opinion. Especially if you've read comics a lot. If you've been reading comics for many, many years, this comic will probably make you happy. It's a recommend. Now, good fucking luck to you figuring out when the next issue comes out. You have to actively work hard. The trick, by the way, to a letter writer, is to go look at the solicits for, what Marvel puts out. You can get them on Newsarama, CBR, or, if you want a, venereal, you want a BD, then you can certainly go to Bleeding Cool. But you can get it from Newsarama, without having your dick fall off. And in the solicitations, if you can kind of, use the Command F key on your laptop, and you can find you can find Murderworld, and you can figure out when it's out, and more or less, but you have to work for it. Why? I know some of you, you've heard me bitch about the solicitations that Marvel puts out and DC puts out, a lot of comics, and how awful they are, and they are truly awful. And I know a number of you have called me a little what is it, the Gen Z, what they call Luigi, a meow man? I don't know. A pussy, basically. He's saying this isn't a really big deal and who really cares and it doesn't matter. And I mean, several of you have made that comment. Fine, you're welcome to. But worse than that, I'm annoyed by the solicitations. Even worse is that the links to promote the comic that you're trying to sell in order to make money don't work on your website. You can't even get the fucking link to your page working. Now, here's a little secret. Go to marvel.com, go to, dig in there, find the Murderworld link, click on the link, dig in there, get yourself the 404 error, page not found, go up to the address bar, look at the URL that is linked to. You will discover that if you just get in there and manually edit it, you'll fix the error, the character error in the string, and you can get to a page that actually exists. In other words, the fucking link is broken because somebody is a dumbass and needs to be fired. And truly, and I'm not speaking for Zub here, because he would never say this, he's too nice a guy, but fuck that person. Fire that person. You that is not an excuse. By the way, everybody can make mistakes in their job. That's cool. I first looked at this error when I read this mail a couple days ago. Before I started recording this video, I checked again. 4 days later, still broken. From the date of this email, it's been, 6 days? Still broken. You're fired. You're fired. I understand we can make lots of videos and we can do lots of stuff about SJW bullshit and bad art and woke and all that. You like all this shit. And we can have a nice little argument about it. Somebody can come in and say, "Oh no, they're wrong. You're subjective." Blah, blah, blah. Downvote because I like woke stuff. Whatever the fuck you're wanting to do. Surely, don't call me Shirley, but certainly, can't we all agree? Can all of us, Republican, Democrat, pedophile, whatever you happen to be, I know the obvious joke, whatever you happen to be in life, can we all agree that you created a comic, you solicited the comic, you paid the creative team, you had something made, you went to the printer, you printed it, you put it in a box, took it to the distributor. Can we all agree that you go through all that work and then you can't have the comic link properly on your fucking website, that you can't even get the date right? Can we all agree that that's bullshit? Please? You do not, again, you can love Trump, hate Trump, like comic theft, piracy, whatever you're into, man. Can we all agree that is like ridiculous incompetence? And seriously, fuck that. We have to, like, we all agree, right? That's awful. It has nothing to do with taste and quality. I don't care. Maybe you're a person who opens up the comic book and all you want is 22 pages of Miles Morales and Squirrel Girl, except Squirrel Girl has transitioned and is now they, them, and they're eating. The entire comic is them eating lunch and nothing but that. And maybe, maybe you love that comic. You want that kind of comic. You could still agree that printing a comic and then not even getting the date and the thing to a point where somebody could even tell what's going on, we can agree that's bad, right? Can anybody right now, anyone on this channel, Nerdette, you're out there. You listen to this channel from time to time. Sometimes you take a contrary opinion to what I'm saying. Do you have do you have a valid excuse for this? I'm not calling you out, by the way. I'm just saying, like, who? Anybody? Mumbles. Can you take your head out of your ass for like one video instead of making a snarky comment and come up with the reason why this is okay? It's like, I defy anyone to go, well, the person tried their hardest. Oh, fuck that. Fire that person. Anyway, please go and check out Murderworld. It's it's by Marvel. Maybe you don't buy Marvel anymore. That's fine. Please don't be that guy. The guy who like comes into like, I don't buy Marvel anymore. Okay, fine. We heard you. You're not an airport. You don't need to announce your departure. It's fine. We get it. Just don't buy the comic. But if you are still buying Marvel comics, please check out Murderworld. Jim's up. It's a good comic. Has some good classic comic feels to it. It's reasonable. You're not going to, you're not going to, slab that thing and put it on your wall as the best comic you've ever read, but you are going to enjoy your money. You're going to feel like money well spent and you'll have a good time. Okay, I think so. It's a good comic. I think if we support comics that are good, whether they're Marvel, DC, Indie, whatever it is, if we support comics that are written well and are trying to do the right thing, then that will lead to good results down the road. I believe that to be true. It's certainly a better bet than some of the other shit we do. So anyway, thank you, Jim Zub. You wrote a comic book that I liked. I would love to buy more of your comics, sir. It would be nice if I could find them. Thanks for listening.